those who aren't able to join us this evening. And finally, we will have, as you know, we will have some speakers this evening. If you have questions, we will hopefully have time for short question sessions after talks. If you have questions, could you put them into the chat bar again when they occur to you, and I shall pick them out in the session at the end of each talk. So yeah, as I've mentioned, we thought for this year, given the opportunity of coming together, we would take that and invite three speakers to talk to us about elements of their work across the network, across Europe, to add some entertainment to the rather dry business of the AGM. So with that in mind, I'm hoping, I did see the name before, that Karen Aghababyan is with us. Karen, if you can make yourself known, the floor is yours to speak to us.
Thank you very much, Mark. Let me share the screen and I will start. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, brilliant.
Excellent. So my talk will be on update of the situation with the Atlas of Breeding Birds in Armenia, which we have started a couple of years ago, and now we are close to finalizing it. So now I'll talk to you but specifically what is the Atlas, which most of you probably know, how we prepare the Atlas, what it already was used for and what it is going to be used for, and how we plan its update, as well as briefly we'll tell about our future plans. So we envision the Atlas as the basically as the scientific justification of state and condition of every breeding species in Armenia. And we have been collecting data since 2003. And also we have collated all the historic data, so we can see the changes in the species distribution. And the data collected from 2003 onwards, we are using to understand the changes in species abundance, its population trend. Then we also are trying to study threats for various species, and those are also being presented in the species accounts in the Atlas, as well as conservation measures for the species. So current Atlas covers the, as I said, the covers period from 2003 to 2019. And we were able to cover over 70% of Armenia at the 10 by 10 kilometer scale. In total, we have recorded 252 species of breeding birds. For some of them, we just suspect the breeding of the species, but nevertheless we include the specific species in the Atlas, so then it gives perspective for further work. And so we, as any other atlas. It consists on data collection, data processing, and interpretation, as well as summarization of the results. So we have been involving a lot of volunteers, which means that we had both standardized and non-standardized counts, so-called opportunistic observations. And we stored all the data in the national database on birds. And then we have been working on the preparation of distribution maps, collecting data before 2003 and after 2003 in order to understand the distribution changes, as well as calculation of population trend through correlated index. And then for each species, we are preparing a species account. So we interpret the results where we try to justify the changes in distribution and population trends versus existing threats and existing conservation measures, and trying to give the species new conservation status according to IUCN Red List criteria. So then we also, after species accounts, we also summarize the results of our work, so to see how different communities in different ecosystems are doing, like in forest ecosystem, in wetland ecosystem, how different threats are influencing the birds, like hunting, climate change, and so on. So as you know, all this data were already used for the European Breeding Bird Atlas too. Also, the data was used for assessment of emerald sites in Armenia, protected under Berne Convention, and development of eco-regional conservation plan, the initiative of WWF Caucasus. Then also we used the data for reassessment of important bird areas of Armenia, because the previous work with IBAs is very poor. No inventories were done in that period. And also we use it for assessment of key biodiversity areas of Armenia. Also, we were able to develop a monitoring system for forest indicators, and now we are trying to introduce this in the forestry practice. And also, we were able to justify why it is necessary to begin change of hunting legislation, and we started this process. And also we were able, first time for Armenia, to calculate the quotas for the game birds and provide this data to the Ministry of Nature Protection for decision making, which birds to allocate for hunting and so on. And also we just started adaptation of the Pan-European Common Bird Monitoring Scheme to Armenia. And also all these data were used for development of new birdwatching tours. Although this is true before the COVID-19 situation, now the incoming bird watching from foreign countries in Armenia is very poor, but we now are focusing on the development of internal market of birders, which will help to stay in such a stressful conditions like under COVID-19. So also we have negotiated with the Ministry of Environment that the atlas will be used for the next edition of Red Book of Armenia, which is coming soon, as well as to improve the national legislation. Specifically, it will be used to improve the law on fauna, law on protected areas, and law on hunting. And also, it will help the country to better implement the international obligations for Berne Convention in assessment and development of management plans for the emerald sites, for CBD, Convention on Migratory Species, Convention on Climate Change, and so on. And also, our data help to better understand and manage the resources on birds, like game bird resource, or indication of forestry efficiency and grassland management. Also, our data is used to understand efficiency of management of protected areas. So we use a number of our species as indicators, as well as understanding of climate change on the biological diversity. And so although for the Atlas we used data until 2019, but we continue with our volunteers data collection every year, and we aim to update the Atlas every 10 years. So as I said, currently we plan to focus more on internal market, so to strengthen community of Armenian bird watchers who also become our potential counters, and to better develop the funding for the monitoring. So what we want to do to develop a path of state funding for the monitoring of the birds. So we soon plan to reach that level. And so it is very important for us to explain Armenian people why the monitoring is necessary as a tool of risk management, of decreasing risk and unnecessary expenses. And also we want, specifically through Pan-European Common Bird Monitoring Scheme, to improve and diversify indicators of ecosystem health. And so yes, to accomplish the PEC-BMS in Armenia, and so it starts operating, and also to make all the information even more easy for various actors, including Armenian potential bird watchers, through new website which we are developing at current, and this is the part of the website. So this is the guide. Online guide to birds of Armenia, where people can find the bird typing its name, and then to read about its features, about its biological characteristics, and so on. That's it so far. I am ready for questions.
Thank you very much, Karen. That was superb. Excellent and very clear. Do we have questions for Karen about this work? I mean, I have one myself. What's your estimate of volunteer capacity for monitoring work? How many people do you have currently helping with monitoring and with atlasing, and what are your aspirations for growing that?
At current, we have about 50 people who are helping us with the general bird count. And also we have over 1,000 families in rural areas who are helping us with a sort of single species monitoring, for example, with monitoring of white storks, barn swallows, and hoopoe, and other such distinct birds. And our estimate, our Facebook group, Armenian Birdwatching Association, is becoming more and more active. And although people at the beginning, they are being involved from activities like helping injured birds or helping the nestlings which fell down from the nest, but after that, they are step by step moving towards observation. And so I expect by the end of this year we would have 70 to 80 people. Also, I have to add here that we are also developing now online trainings in bird identification. So a number of people are participating in it. And also, since this year, we would have another activity. We're going to develop a specific excursions for the school children who studies zoology, so 7th grade of the school children who studies birds in this period. So our excursion will be supplemental visualization of their theoretical classes. And our initial surveys of the biological teachers and school children and their parents shows great interest. So we assume development of implementation of at least 50 such tours per year, such excursions per year for first year. And then with the development of good tour leaders, we will be able to expand this. Here we need, of course, we need some equipment like binoculars, spotting scopes, and also telephoto lenses for the smartphones. So we are now in the process of fundraising for that equipment. Other questions?
There's a question from David Noble about Peckham's plots.
Yeah.
How many Peckham's plots do you have per year? And are you able to show some interesting trends yet?
We have about 80 routes that we count every year. And those 80 routes are distributed through grassland, forest, and wetland ecosystems, more or less equally. And yes, there are several trends that we will be able to show. It would be better to talk about it a bit later, but so far there are a number of species-specific trends which we can talk about, like what was the recent one? I would need to look through the data, but for example, our grassland in our grassland indicator, as far as I remember, they were out of about 24 species. 6 species were increasing. 9 species were stable, and the rest were declining. So in general, we had a declining population trend. And the similar situation also with the woodland indicator and wetland indicator.
Okay, thank you. Any more quick questions? No, doesn't look like it. Well, thank you very much, Karen. That was a superb presentation and a superb amount of work and development you're doing. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, and we look forward to hearing more in years to come.
Right. Thank you very much for the kind words, and thanks for your attention.
Pleasure. And if you can, you have to stop sharing your screen so
yes,
we can.
I did.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so that was one of our 3 presentations for this evening. We'll now move on with the maybe slightly less interesting business of the AGM itself. So the matters of business there, I have not received any apologies from delegates. I don't know whether either Henning or Dawn have.
You might. There's one in the chats that I've just picked up from Johannes Kamp.
Ah, yes. Henning did mention he wasn't going to be able to attend. Yes. Minutes of our last AGM are available on our website, as will the minutes from this meeting. So I won't linger on those any longer. As I mentioned before as well, this meeting is being recorded, so we'll make this available on the EBCC's YouTube channel, so those who aren't able to join us can catch up with the presentations at their leisure. So the next step is for the chairman's report. So to me, a written version of this will be made available with the minutes on our website in more detail as well. But I'll go through some of the highlights and the important bits of news from the EBCC's year. I think we have had an outstanding year with a wide range of activity across the network in, as we all know, unprecedented and challenging circumstances. Most notably, of course, in our year, and I have to do that, you're familiar probably with the weight of this book. In late 2020, we saw the culmination of 10 years' work in the publication of the European Breeding Bird Atlas 2, Distribution, Abundance and Change. Our other main projects, Pan-European Common Bird Monitoring and Eurobird Portal, have continued to develop. We know in some countries data collection will have been impacted last year by COVID-19 restrictions upon field work, and there have been maybe other impacts upon our networks, such as on capacity and on funding because of COVID-19, but work has continued. And that work is reliant upon the support of thousands of scientists, ornithologists, conservationists, and bird watchers, the organizations that support them. And we offer all of these our heartfelt thanks for their expertise, their dedication and enthusiasm, which has made all of this possible, and their perseverance in the most difficult of years. So some details. As at the last AGM, there have been no changes to board composition and none proposed at this AGM. So the current board is Einar Einans, Dawn Balmer, myself, Mark Heaton, Henning Hellberg, Mikhail Kylekin, Verena Keller, Alexei Lehekoen, Jean-Yves Paquet, Danae Portalou and Chris van Turnhout. We're also supported by the involvement of some excellent observers, so Gabriel Gargallo, Sergi Hirando, Elena Kavlona, Szabos Nagy, Ivan Ramirez, Anna Stanieva and Petr Voracek. And I should say that all those board members and observers make a great contribution to the work of the EBCC and thus to European ornithology and conservation. So I think we should all thank them for their contributions, and from my perspective also for being friends and a pleasure to work and to learn from. We've held two board meetings as usual, our usual 6 monthly intervals, obviously less usually, but as you'll understand, we've not met in person but held these by video conference. But we've made also, this has been a hindrance but also a benefit, because we've been using our newfound familiarity with video conferencing and Zoom to hold more frequent meetings, interim meetings, as well as subgroup meetings. So this has helped in many ways. Chris van Turnhout, our EBCC Treasury, will report separately to the AGM. I'll just say that at the moment our bank balance is healthy. We're developing plans to launch a small grants fund, which will enable us to provide targeted financial support to specific projects across the EBC network. We'll aim to fundraise specifically to support this fund, and we hope to provide further details on this initiative later in the year and start fundraising and start looking at how we can use that fund to support worthy things across the network, developing our aims. On delegates, as you know, as most of you, if not all of you, will be national delegates. The EBC relies on our delegate network of up to 2 per country to support and promote our activities. Our delegate officer, Henning Hellberg, has been very busy ensuring that this network is robust, as complete as possible, and the delegates are active and engaged and done a great job. I think our network may be as strong as it's ever been. I will leave Henning to report on this shortly. Bird Census News, our journal. Alexei Cohen has continued as editor, having taken over from Annie Anselin, with Henning, myself, Jean-Yves and Olga Volsky providing support. So the most recent issue came out earlier this year. That was volume 33, with 5 papers. We've trialed the inclusion of different types of content. This latest issue has interviews with 2 pillars of the EBCC community, Verena Keller and Mikhail Kailakin. We'd really encourage you all members of the EBCC network, to consider BCN, open access, free to publish in, for all papers on subjects such as census and monitoring atlas work in Europe at all scales, from local studies to continental. So please consider it, and please also promote it within your own networks, both in terms of getting people to read it and be aware of it, but also to think of contributing to it. Of course, BCN is one of our communication routes, and I think the EBCC is getting better at its communication across numerous networks now through various routes. In June last year, we relaunched the EBCC website. That's ebcc.info. We manage separate websites for the 3 main projects, Atlas, Peckhams and Europe Bird Portal. We have a new e-newsletter, which goes out to over 600 contacts at the moment. Please encourage people to sign up to it. You can do that on our homepage. It goes out 4 times a year. We also had an additional newsletter to coincide with the launch of the Atlas. We're active on social media, Facebook accounts for EBA2 and a new one for EBCC, and Twitter accounts for EBP, EBA2 and EBCC. And as I mentioned before, during the pandemic, we've used online communications more often, events such as this, specialized webinars, and we can make events available retrospectively. And at the board meeting this morning, we've been talking about how we could make more use of video to communicate using YouTube. There was also a new forum using Slack. I'm afraid I'm too old to know everything about Slack. I have to learn about that. But within the Peckhams network, are using Slack to discuss things and communicate. So I'll try and get up to speed with that. The conference, as I'm sure you'll know, our 22nd conference will be hosted by the Swiss Ornithological Institute in Lucerne next spring, so 4th to 8th of April. Now, I know that there are uncertainties due to the pandemic, but we are optimistic and we hope strongly that a conference with physical attendance will be possible, so we can have that direct exchange of news and discussion, and we can chat and just have a proper exchange. The conference website at ebcc2022.ch was launched in March, and it will be the place to check for updates. I'm not going to talk at length about the conference now, because all the information will be going up there. We've got 5 great plenary speakers to announce shortly. There'll be a call for contributions with a deadline in September. It's a great venue. It will be a great conference, and I hope to see as many as you as possible there, and we can have our next AGM in person. Then moving on to our 3 main projects. So Pan-European Common Bird Monitoring Scheme. It's funded since January 2020 by an EC tender with the Czech Society for Ornithology. Leading on that with RSPB, BirdLife, ICO and the University of East Anglia subcontractors. New common bird indicators were published in June last year, but for the first time, the indicators final year of 2018 was estimated. And by doing so, this saved time to allow more work in the background at Peckham, so allowing a revision of the data set, the implementation of new tools, a cleaning up of the database and new analyses. And this work was finished in March. So this technical development, the working with RTRIM, the online tool, and looking at using RSwan and developing various capacities. Important landmark was reached last month with the publication of the first data paper in scientific data. So long-term and large-scale multi-species data set tracking population changes of common European breeding birds. Also, there is a database available containing supernatural and national population indices as part of that. There's various other papers ongoing, working in collaboration with external researchers across Europe. There's policy use, meeting with the European Union to look for ways to ensure that Peckham's outputs are the most valuable. There was a webinar hosted, so the first Peckham's webinar was hosted last month with over 40 participants. I'm sure many of you were there. There's been assistance to national coordinators from Belarus, Croatia, Greece and Belgium in data management and computation, help with fundraising for the Atlas of Ukraine, and as we'll hear from Dimitrije shortly, working with Serbian colleagues to develop a bird monitoring scheme in there, and the development of international census plots. The Peckham's website's been updated regularly. There's been lots of news items and publications. So, if you've not kept track, please go and look at peckhams.info. And lots of also news through some of the channels I mentioned previously, such as Facebook. And there's a new logo, lovely new logo. Hopefully you've all noticed. Moving on to EBA 2. So maybe the highlight of the EBCC year. So work through 2020 had one goal, the publication of the book by the end of the year. I'm sure you realise this was an immense amount of work, and there were some difficulties, particularly posed by the pandemic, which was hard in Spain in the spring, where our publishers links editions are, and of course much of the Atlas team. But this was worked around, and as I'm sure you all know, we successfully launched the book on the 3rd of December 2020. Of course, we didn't have the workshop and the physical launch we wanted, but we did have a wonderful virtual event with some people lucky enough to gather together in the three centres of Barcelona, Semper and Prague, but the rest of us watching on and partaking in the morning with presentations in a workshop, and then the launch in the afternoon. Both had about 300 people attending remotely, and in fact the videos made available since the launch video has been offered access, been watched by over 3,000 people, the workshop by over 2,500 people. There was considerable media attention coming off the press release, so coverage in newspapers, TV and radio broadcasts. The promotion of the book, of course, had started before that with many items at a national level, BirdLife webinar and so forth. The book was sold at a reduced rate, pre-sales, and then after publication returned to the price of 90 euros it's still available at. It has sold very well, certainly more than the publishers anticipated, possibly not more than we'd anticipated and the Atlas team had anticipated. It's now, we're waiting for the third print run to come in. Sales are, I think, in the order of 6,000 books or so. If you haven't got one, the opportunities for buying one will run out before too long, because we believe that will be the final print run. In addition to that, we've been supporting national partners with providing database extracts, for example, maps showing European distribution to be included within the fantastic effort of the National Atlas for European Russia. So providing those extracts and beginning to make use of the data in research purposes. So the EBCC research group has started the first analysis with some partners, and we're expecting a sort of final draft of that very shortly. So that will be a first look at what the distribution changes are showing us. Moving on, because we don't stand still, the Atlas team are still busy. They're working towards the launch of a new website to be done by the end of this year. This is using funding from the Marva Foundation, which supported the Atlas as a whole. It's also supporting the development of a new Atlas to produce the maps, make the maps available freely online by the end of 2021. So, yeah, a fantastic achievement. I think just at this point, I mean, there are lots of people that deserve credit for what the EBCC do, but I think we should, just pause to acknowledge the debt we owe to those behind EBA 2. So the in excess of 100,000 observers, the national coordinators, particularly those who produced amazing coverage where we hadn't had it previously, such as in European Russia, Mikhail and Olga, but also that the funders, the publishers, the artists, the species account authors, the steering committee, the core teams in Barcelona, Semper and Prague, the book authors, and probably more than anyone, the three figures are of Petr Voracek, Sergei Hrando, and of course, Verena Keller, who was inspirational. So I'm sure as a network, we already have, but we all should continue to salute their effort and what they've done for the EBCC. Finally, in terms of our projects, European Bird Portal continues to grow and develop towards its aims of describing large-scale spatial temporal patterns of bird distribution and changes, and improving the value of online data gathering portals by bringing that data in, increasing the relevance, the interest, promoting standardization, best practice, and so forth. So to date, the EBP has partners from 34 countries. That's all 27 EU countries except Malta. Iceland's become a new partner, started to submit data recently. The only two of the EBP countries are not submitting data to the central database. That's Russia and Lithuania. Both joined in 2019 and hopefully will be adding their data in very, very shortly. There was the 16th meeting took place in March, 25 attendees from 18 countries. And like the rest of us, that happened through video conferencing, as did other communication over the year. 16 out of the 19 systems submitting data are doing so automatically on a daily basis. So in terms of volume data, that's well over 99% of all the data is submitted automatically daily. And the volume is amazing. So between 2010 and 20, that's 389 million bird records. In 2020 alone, that was more than 56 million bird records in that 1 year. Importantly, the collection of structured data continues to improve. So currently over 34% of the whole data holding comes from either complete or fixed lists. And the submission of lists is increasing over time. And 12 million bird records have been explicitly associated to specific data collection protocols, i.e. standardized monitoring projects. So there is more rigor and more rigorous data going into what is collected by EBP. Funding over the last year has been through the European Food and Safety Authority in the context of avian influenza surveillance. So EBP is providing data to help EFSA for 50 bird species identified as being relevant to their avian flu surveillance. And they're also now working with them to produce a new version of the U-ring migration mapping tool, which will provide connectivity information. As a result of that, because only 18 of the 50 species were already covered by EBP portal, they've added 32 new species to the data flow to cover those 50. And over the next few months, all of those 50 species will be available in the viewer. So the number of species covered by the EBP viewer will increase from 105 to 137. So fantastic efforts there. So great news, great progress in a difficult year across all three projects. Of course, we continue to work outside of that. We continue to work with others, with Wetland International, closely with BirdLife International, for example. We've been supporting them on the provision of data and expertise for the new red list for the European Union, which came out last year, and the European red list, which will come out later this year, and we all look forward to seeing. We're also working with Rewilding Europe on a revision of the Wildlife Combat Report, which we published with them in 2013. So that was the EBCC's year. I'll end this report much the same way as I did in 2020, which, as I mentioned before, I certainly didn't think back then that we would be in the same situation, that we should reflect on the impact that this pandemic has had across society and individuals across Europe. And I want to express the EBC support to our community of birdwatchers, of ornithologists, scientists and conservationists. I hope that you and your families, your friends, your colleagues are all safe and well. We offer our condolences to those who've lost relatives or friends. Many of us have. I've lost colleagues and birdwatching friends over this last year. It has been difficult. And of course, we offer our gratitude to the individuals who remain at the forefront of combating this crisis and bringing us out of this. And I really hope that we can celebrate this and our achievements with as many as possible of you at our conference in Switzerland in a year's time. So that is all from me. Like I said, there's an even longer version of that will be available on our website. But hopefully, it was of some interest to hear a summary of our year. On that note, then can I hand over to Chris for a short financial update?
Thank you, Mark. I will start sharing my screen. I hope you can all see that. I will not present the full financial report 2020. You can read that within a while on the EBCC website, together with the minutes of the board meeting. Instead, I will present only some key figures from the financial report. At the beginning of this year, we had 42,000 euros at our bank account, which is a few thousand more than we had the year before. We had two posts for income of money, and both were related to the handling of data from EBA2 for research projects, one from Mathieu Chevalier from the University of Lausanne, and one from Damara Surel from the Humboldt Universiteit in Germany. So in total, 7,000 euros. Of course, we had also expenses last year, but not too much, because we had no travel and accommodation costs for board meetings. We had only virtual meetings last year. We had some costs for banking and administration. We have, of course, the contract and payments for our research officer, Anna Gamero, who's working at the Prague team. And we spent almost 3,000 euros for restyling the EBCC website and for website maintenance. So, in conclusion, I guess EBCC has a very healthy financial situation, and also for 2021, prospects are very good, because we expect income from royalties of EBA2 book sales, and probably more data handling costs from several research projects. So that's in brief all I had to say. Maybe now we should give the word to our financial audit committee, who checked the books. And,
thank you, Chris. Yes, if either Ruud or Koen wants to report on their audit.
I can do that. Koen, are you there?
Yes, you can do it.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Yes, Koen and I had a look at the administration. Of course, that needs to be correct and transparent. And we have to say that the treasurer did a good job. We did find no problems with the administration, and the financial overview is clear and transparent. So we advised the board to discharge the treasurer for this. We had some small advices which are being picked up by the treasurer, but that that doesn't prevent us from giving a positive advice to the board about this about the reporting of this financial year. So well done, Chris.
Thank you very much, Ruud and Koen, for your service in helping us with that, and thank you very much, Chris, for your work as treasurer and for successfully passing the grilling of our audit commission. So congratulations. Okay, moving on. We do have a small number of changes to the delegate network. So could I invite Henning and perhaps Chris, you could unshare your screen. If Henning can join us to update us on changes.
Yes, thank you very much. I won't share anything, but just tell you in 2 minutes what has happened since last year. And since 2020, we have had 5 new delegates, and some are replacing others that stepped down quite some time ago. But the 5 new delegates are from Norway, Dimitrije Radisic, who's replacing Magne Husby. And then from Portugal, we have 2 new delegates. We have Carlos Coutinho and we have Hani Alonso. And they are replacing João Rabaca and Julia Almeida. And from Iceland, we have also 2 new delegates. We have Gunnar Thor Hallgrímsson and we have Jan Kolbeinsson. And there was a year almost with no delegates from Iceland. So we are very happy to have 2 new faces from here. That's brilliant. Altogether, we have only 5 countries now with only 1 delegate. These are Albania, Azerbaijan, Liechtenstein, Serbia, and Georgia. And then we have 42 countries with the 2 delegates, which is the maximum we can have. And that means that altogether we have 47 countries and 89 delegates. And that's, I think it's a very good coverage. I think we can be proud of. And I'm sure if everyone helps making the newsletter and the BCN interesting, it'll be great in the coming year as well. Yeah, I think that's what I will say. Any questions or comments? You're welcome.
Anything for Henning? Well, I think, of course, our thanks to you, Henning, for your work, and of course, thanks to those who have served as delegates and who have stood down, some after for very many years, and welcome to the new delegates. And of course, an encouragement to all delegates to be active and engaged, to share your news with us, and to help us with all our activities. And yes, that might include items for our newsletter or BCN articles and so forth to communicate. So yeah, and it is a healthy and strong network.
And if there are any changes, anything, new mail address or anything, please communicate it to me immediately. We will update the delegates list on the website, let's say in 2 weeks. So if there are anything you want to change, send me a mail and we'll see to that it will be updated within 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Henning. Okay, all we have left in terms of the formal business of the AGM is if there is any other business. So are there any points that delegates want to raise? And after that, then we have 2 exciting presentations to enjoy.
Mark, there's a question in chat for you or Alexi about bird census news.
Yes, I was hoping Alexei might answer, but it's a good point, Karen, about the status of BCM. We have had discussions before about what we might do there, and I think it is something we can return to. But yes, it's not peer reviewed. It doesn't have an ISBN or so, and it's not registered on platforms such as you say. So I don't know whether Alexei has any comments to add to that.
Not really. I think that's the main thing, and I think it will be quite a long way to go to having it as a kind of peer-reviewed impact factor journal.
Yeah, but it's a point worth raising anyway. Thank you, Karen. Any other comments or? Okay, in which case we'll move on from the formal business of the AGM, and thank you for sitting through that. And I now have the pleasure of inviting Dimitrije Radisic, if you're ready to tell us about some really interesting, exciting developments in bird monitoring in Serbia. So.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Hello to everyone. I will now start my presentation. Okay. Yeah, so can you see my presentation at the screen?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. So a few weeks or a few months ago, we got an invitation to present something new in Serbia. This is the beginning of the common bird monitoring, which is something that we wait for a long time. And actually, it's a shorter version of it. It's international census plot approach. In the invitation, we were asked to share our experience with this new scheme, but actually it's a very short experience since we started to do fieldwork a few days ago. But however, I would like to explain briefly what we want to achieve and how we got to this point. So yeah, first few words about a situation in Serbia. I think that the best words to describe Serbian ornithology is good potential, but lack of capacities. We want to do a lot of things in our country, and we have very good ornithologists, but unfortunately we are not always able to do everything. Basically, we were quite focused to deliver good data sets for pan-European programs like Birds in Europe Free, like for European Red List of Birds. We try to do our best to make a new IBA inventory, and we participated in EBA2 program. And for us, it was a great achievement that we managed to deliver good data set. Actually, we had a lot of help during the EBA2 program. EBCC and MAWA Foundation helped us a lot. And the very important point in this Atlas work was list of birds delivered from the systematically selected areas of the country. So basically, for the first time, we got data for the common birds from whole country. Usually our research and our monitoring programs were quite focused to the rare and threatened species, but common birds somehow was not covered by the good research. And EBA2 program was the first one that gave us opportunity to go in all parts of the country and to do almost 200 predefined transects, which basically collected data on complete species list from the area. And it's very important to say that for us, it's interesting to listen about bird monitoring schemes that are happening throughout Europe, but we have to say that we are quite bad in monitoring because monitoring is usually not recognized in the country that's like something important for the biodiversity conservation. So basically, we have only few monitoring schemes which are sometimes not done in proper way. Usually those monitoring schemes are dedicated to the most threatened species and species of great conservation importance, such as griffon vulture, great bustard, and so on. And there is no such a thing as a good monitoring of any common birds, not just pan-European common bird monitoring, but any monitoring of the common species. And actually, stakeholders in Serbia are quite interested into getting data because Serbia is EU candidate member, and our government knows that they have some obligation to report about the status of environment, and common bird population are important indicators, so they want data, and they usually ask our BirdLife partner to deliver data on common bird trends, but they don't want to fund any research. So this is a situation that's not easy to be solved. However, Bird Protection and Studies Society of Serbia recognize the common bird monitoring as something really important, and we really was waiting for the opportunity to start with the program. Our main challenge in Serbia is lack of funding for those kinds of activities. As I said, we have ornithologists that are quite skillful in the field, and they have experience with different bird survey. But actually, we don't have opportunity to involve them in continuous monitoring program. We are not able to rely completely on volunteers and on volunteer work. We just have to give them or to provide them some opportunity to go in the field and to at least cover their travel costs and other costs of bird research. For us, unlike some Western European countries, it's completely impossible to rely completely on volunteers. Other big problem is uneven distribution of ornithologists in the country. Our ornithologists are more or less concentrated in few cities, in few large centers, and there are big part of the countries without good coverage of the and good ornithologists that can easily go to the field without higher travel costs. And also, we have to admit that we have a lack of experience with long-term continuous monitoring program. It is something quite new for us. We were quite good in organizing short-term bird survey that involves a huge number of people, but it was done only during one or two consecutive seasons, not in a continuous manner. So we don't have experience with those kind of programs. And yeah, we started preparation a few months ago. We were contacted by a common bird monitoring team, actually from Alena, Eva, and Peter, and they made a few interviews with us. They asked us about our what we think it would be most challenging, and what we think about how common bird monitoring is big priority in Serbia. So actually, they proposed us approach that should give us opportunity to provide some data about population of common birds, data that could be very useful for the European scale monitoring of their population, but probably not enough to provide trends for the Serbia. So I think that they understood the situation in the country, that we need something to start monitoring, and it will probably develop in a good way if we got some nice results at the beginning. So it was actually the international census plot was proposed by the Peter, and we decided to take our chance and to try to work on it. We had a lot of discussion about how to organize this work, and we had to decide on many things in very short time. So we were basically discussing about some details of field methodology and about some details on organization. We decided that our coordinator will be Radislav Miric. He's a very good and very experienced ornithologist, but without much experience in coordinating this kind of work. But we really think that he will be great. And EBCC even give us one donation, very important for this year, for the how to say pilot research, pilot survey in the country. So it was something good for start. And methodology of the field work was discussed mostly with Peter. He gave us really good instructions, and he explained us in very small details how to work in the field, and we are really grateful for that. We had a lot of questions. It was not always easy for us to switch from Atlas way of thinking to monitoring, but however, we design a methodology for the field work. Basically, we will have to work with semi-randomly sample selected sites because we are not able to cover all the country. We gave our volunteers opportunity to decide whether they want to cover area of 10 or 12, 20 or 30 kilometers around sites they live. And within the circle of 10, 20 or 30 kilometers around, we gave them, we randomly select appropriate number of sampling plots. We decided to use 2 by 2 kilometer grid ETRS coordinate system, which should be in line with Korean and with some other European programs. And also we wanted to work with 2 by 2 kilometer grid because of potential use of this scheme in IUCN red list criteria on area of occupancy. In few cases, we had 2 by 2 squares that were randomly selected that were in quite inaccessible areas. In those cases, volunteers got the new square that is accessible and where they could do all the work. Within every 2 by 2 plot, we put 2 line transects. They are 1 kilometer long, and they have to be 500 meters from each other, and also 200 meters from the border of the square. Those are criteria. We decided to give our coordinator a chance to choose all the transects. For us, it was not enough time to discuss in detail with our volunteers where to put the line transects, and we used the experience from EBA2 when we decided on which location our volunteers should go. So our coordinator Radislav made all transects. In the field, we will collect data on 3 belts. One is 0 to 25 meters. The second one is 25 to 100 meters, and also 100 plus meters. First visit of selected plot is between May 15 and between April 15 and May 10, and also the second one is from the half of May to June 10. We had a lot of discussion, should we use Atlas code in collecting, in recording behavior of the birds, and we decided to use Atlas code because our volunteers get used to this kind of work, and definitely we will have to see in this year how it works, but we managed to translate all Atlas codes into the categories that are useful for the common bird monitoring. And on the picture in the right side of the slide, you can see few plots around city of Novi Sad. This is the city with the largest concentration of volunteers able to work in the field, and it was quite challenging to decide to select sample plots around and to cover different kind of habitats. I forgot to mention that we have 27 volunteers involved in the scheme at the moment, and they will cover, I think, 30 different plots. So this is for the beginning, and actually this is more or less the same number of people that are involved in all serious and all important monitoring schemes in the country. So yeah, this is one plot in Vojvodina. Sometimes we were quite disappointed by the random selection because the plots that were selected are, how to say, they not represent habitats and landscapes so well. But of course, we are aware that random sampling is completely necessary for the scheme, and this is the best way. But sometimes our volunteers will go in quite boring places. But definitely we have to teach them that it is the very important, and they should follow methodology in very detailed way. So for us, it's a new beginning, and we always improvise at the beginning, and I hope that it will grow to the proper scheme, and I hope that we will soon join the pan-European common bird monitoring. We have a lot of things to learn, and once again, thanks to Peter and all other great ornithologists that helped us with this developing of the scheme, and they already helped us a lot during EBA2, and now this is also very important. For us, it's also important that we want to keep our volunteers mobilized, because it's important to always have something to give people as a task, because we don't have many organizations that are working with bird survey and so on. So if people are not always involved in some very well organized monitoring scheme, they will just lose the interest. And also, we hope that Serbia will be a good example of this transitional period for other countries that still don't have pan-European common bird monitoring scheme. Actually, this international census plot approach could be also applied in countries from the region and other countries that are probably not able to do the proper common bird monitoring due to the same problems as we have. But on the other hand, this is something very good for start, and let's hope that this scheme will grow. And yeah, this is basically all. It's quite short. As I said, we have only few days of fieldwork experience and a lot of experience with discussing via Zoom meeting and so on. But I hope that in few months or next year I will have, or someone from Serbia will have a good report about common bird monitoring in the country. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dimitrije. That was very good, very clear, and very exciting to see this development, and very hot off the press as well. No more current than that. I can see one question from Karen, who asks about the number of 2x2 plots, and while I give that to Dimitrije, I'll see if there's anyone else who has questions.
Okay, I will answer. We have 30 plots, 27 volunteers that are covered 30 plots. At the beginning, we wanted to do more, but then we analyzed our volunteers, and many of them were basically beginners. So we decided to not restrict, but to be modest in a way, and decide to have 30 plots. It's quite good for the beginning, and we will see how it will develop.
Sounds sensible. There's a few notes of congratulations coming in, which are deserved. Any more questions for Dimitrije? Well, I think so. We finish on time. We'll leave it at that, and like people are doing in the chat, wish you all the best for a very successful field season, and hope this continues to grow. It's an exciting first step.
Thank you for attention once again, and thank you for inviting us to present our start of the work.
Thank you. And finally, to close the evening, the third of our three presentations, I'd like to invite Viesturs Kerus. If we can all ignore the name that comes up underneath him, that's his wife, Laura. Viesturs is going to tell us about decades of Latvian atlasing. So over to you, Viesturs.
Hello. Yes, don't be confused by my wife's name. My name is Viesturs Kerus, as Mark already told you. And one thing I want to tell you about me is that in 2004, I was 20 years old, and I took my second ever trip abroad. And this trip was to Turkey, to Kayseri, where EBCC conference was held, and where I was telling the participants about the preliminary results of the second Latvian breeding bird atlas, being nervous as hell, and in this picture standing next to chair of the session Lorenzo Fornassari, and waiting for the questions from the audience. So you will understand that for me it is a very special opportunity today to tell you about the results that came after that conference. And with this, I also want to emphasize that the story of breeding bird atlases, as you are well aware, is a story not only of birds, but also of people. And the story of Latvian breeding bird atlases starts when I was not even born, but some of the key people for the first Latvian breeding bird atlas are seen in this picture. Jānis Spriednieks, the first author of the book, Jānis Vīksne, long-term and also the first president of Latvian Ornithological Society, Agris Strasts, you will have never met, and Māris Strasts, who was 20 years old at the start of the fieldwork of the first breeding bird atlas, and in many ways a very important person in this process, but you will know him as a black stork expert most likely. And back in 1980s, Latvia was still part of Soviet Union. Agriculture was rather intensive in Latvia. Forestry was of rather low intensity. But being part of Soviet Union comes with challenges that will be hard to imagine for people that are younger than me or coming from Western Europe. Just to give you an illustration, decent maps were not available back then, which would be needed for normal Atlas fieldwork. And the best maps that were available in some photocopies were illegal to have. So the people who only the most trusted people were given these photocopies, and they had to worry not only about recording birds, but also about not being caught with the map by police. Despite all these challenges, this team managed to pull off a groundbreaking project in Latvia, and I must mention that out of that broken ground sprung also Latvian Ornithological Society. Give you a maps of bird distribution, as this is a story about atlases. The first breeding bird atlas was carried out in 10 to 10 kilometer squares in UTM system. And here in this map and the ones you will see next, the shade of green is from lighter, which is possible breeding, to darkest, which is confirmed breeding, and the gray squares are squares without any species, unsurveyed squares. So one example of that situation in 80s, European roller was already declining in Latvia back then, but still rather widespread species. Then there was middle spotted woodpecker, very rare species, only 4 atlas squares where this species was recorded, and one nice little farmland bird species, yellow wagtail, which was found all over Latvia, despite, as I said, agriculture being of rather high intensity. Then immediately after that came the first European breeding bird atlas, which was a milestone on a European level, but we didn't pull this off as good on a national level because we had just finished one national breeding bird atlas. The same team jumped on to the European one from 85 to 89. And focused more on covering decently 50 kilometer squares, not so much the 10 kilometer squares we used in Latvia. So there was rather poor survey coverage. For this reason, we don't use this data in formal comparisons and evaluations of changes in breeding bird distribution. But I would still say that it seems that European roller was declining in distribution already back then. Then in 2000, the second Latvian breeding bird atlas came. The situation had changed very much. We had regained our independence. We had published new, rather decent maps, although in a different coordinate system, not UTM, which made us use, and we still use, slightly different squares. The intensity of agriculture initially in 1990s had gone down, then it started to go up again, although some sectors in agriculture have still not reached the levels of 80s. And we also started chopping off our forests on a much more intensive level than we did back in 1980s. We still had paper forms to gather the bird observations, and this is where I came in. My job was to collect these forms and compile a digital database. So the maps would not be had to drawn by hand than was in the first Latvian breeding bird atlas. And by this time, we had not only regained our independence, but as all Europe, we had regained the population of white-tailed eagle, which had declined dramatically decades ago. and now was starting to recover. And these here maps for comparison are for purposes of comparison, the atlas squares are shown also in 10 to 10 kilometer grid for the second Latvian breeding bird atlas, although what we actually used was 5 kilometer grid to get more detailed distribution maps, which, as we had more field workers, we thought we are able to pull off. And this is a distribution of middle spotted woodpecker I showed you before. And I showed this map also 17 years ago in that conference in Kayseri, and there were some surprised whispers in the audience because the middle spotted woodpecker had shown really a dramatic increase in distribution and also the population size. However, I told you about our forestry intensity going up, and it, of course, had some impact. It was not the only bad things that impacted black stork and other forest birds, but definitely one of the most important. And so one of the most iconic forest bird species in Latvia, black stork, had started its decline, which I'm sad to say it continues to this day. And then the most recent, the second European breeding bird atlas. Again, things have changed for Latvia. Latvia by then had become the member of European Union, and as you know, European Union comes with some good things like Birds Directive and some bad things like Common Agricultural Policy. And returning to the story of people, it also came as it came with a new person, Andris Dekans. Some of you might have met him, so he was the coordinator of the European Breeding Bird Atlas in Latvia, and he is also the coordinator of now ongoing third Latvian Breeding Bird Atlas. And although some people still use paper forms, now we had also a new online bird portal, and not only bird. You can report any species there, called Dabas Dati, which was a dream when we worked on the second breeding bird atlas, and now it was here. So most of the observations were submitted online, which has some upsides and also some downsides, as you may imagine. But in this case, the good thing was that the atlas squares we used were exactly the same as the second breeding bird atlas, which let us carry out more detailed comparison, because back when we compared 2000 to 2004 to the first Latvian breeding bird atlas, we just put 5 kilometer squares into 10 kilometer squares and compared the number of squares. Now we can check if the species has appeared or disappeared in the particular square, and we also see what has happened to the habitats in this square. And one of the good stories is a story of Firecrest, which is well, not really a completely new breeding species in Latvia. It had bred in the end of 19th century, but in the framework of these atlases, this is a new species. Here the blue squares mark the squares where the species was not present before and is found now. So all of the squares for this species are blue, as you can see. Not all the stories are happy stories, and let me remind you of the nice farmland bird, yellow wagtail. And here you can see that the red color dominates. And the red squares are the ones where the species was present in 2000 and 2004 and is no longer here. And the yellow or orange squares are the ones where the species has remained, and the blue ones, as I told you, are the ones where it has been recorded for the first time. So overall, as you see, the species is going down, and the monitoring results also show the dramatic decline in population size. So all of these good stories and bad stories are compiled in this nice book, Latvian Breeding Bird Atlases 80 to 2017, available not probably in the bookstores closest to you, but online for sure. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Viesturs. And yes, we should all look online, and that seems like a fantastic publication. And they've certainly a fantastic presentation on the atlases behind it. So thank you very much. A nice link as well to your first conference. I can only apologise that this time that you present on atlases, you have to do it from your own house without any nice foreign travel.
It's okay. I don't like travels.
Okay, not even to Turkey. Have we any questions for Viesturs on the back of that presentation? So Sven Trautmann, has there been a lot of farmland abandonment in Latvia?
Yes, initially there has been. So the low point for our agriculture was mid-90s, when the agricultural intensity was the lowest, and not all of the farmland abandoned then is reclaimed by agriculture now. Some of it has become forests, but either way, either it becomes forest or intensive agriculture is not good for some species like concrete that like the habitats in between. So Einars is putting a link to the book, so buy today.
Very good, yes. And maybe we can get Dawn to add that to the minutes of the AGM. So
and to reply to Jean-Yves, yes, the middle spotted woodpecker has continued its increase.
Okay. Any more questions? Well, otherwise, it just remains to me to thank everyone for attending, all the delegates who've joined us this evening, and those that aren't part of the delegate network. Thank you in particular to our three guest speakers who've all given superb presentations. I personally very pleased that we decided to do that. So Viesturs, Karen, Dimitrije, thank you very much for that. I think absolutely excellent. I would welcome feedback on this event from all out there. We'd be interested in knowing whether people would be interested in further events like this. We know there are other people who've got talks who would be able to share them, and whether people will be interested in, at another point, attending a short evening event with some presentations like this. Obviously, we don't want to compete with content for our own conference next year, and we will be pushing for submissions to that, and of course encouraging you all to bring presentations such as these to Switzerland next year. But if people think this is an idea we could do more of, then we'd be happy to look at hosting more events. So please, you can drop me an email at mark.eaton@rsbb.org.uk. Of course, it's on the EBCC website as well. So thank you all for attending. Thank you for our speakers. Thank you for all those in the board who've worked so hard, and those who've helped with this evening's AGM. And on that note, I wish you all well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the spring.
Do a group picture? Shouldn't we all put our cameras on and make a group picture somehow?
Yeah, how many people can we get on the screen? I think I don't know the settings for more than
I see
9 people. So, yes.
Mark.
Yeah.
If you go to more actions, the 3 dots at the top,
Yes.
You can click on together mode.
Together mode, right? Yeah.
Which will do a very weird thing, but it will get everybody in.
So it does, yes. So cameras on, everyone, so you can appear in the together mode. This is a good idea, Ruth. Thanks, and thanks, Ness, for this. So we've got a whole load of faces there, and if everyone smiles, say cheese, as we say in England. Say cheese, everyone, smile, and I shall screenshot. Wonderful.
But how to see it all together? I see only one face.
I still see only 9.
Okay. I think maybe actually everybody can do it themselves. So if you will click on the 3 dots at the top and then put it in together mode, it will show you everyone. But Mark can also share the photo as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think if people have to do it themselves, but we circulate it anyway, and we call. Yes, this is certainly something. It's very strange, not something I've seen before. But thanks for that, Ness. Yeah, things you can do nowadays. I almost feel like I'm in Lucerne already. Next year's conference, talking to you all. So yes, it gives a taste of what to look forward to. Prefer to see it in flesh next year. Okay, well, like I was saying, everyone, take care. I hope you've found this evening interesting and enjoyable. I certainly have, and please stay in touch. I look forward to hopefully seeing you next spring. So,
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye, all of you.